Hello, my name is Charles Ballard. I'm an A2 media student, and here's my presentation on film trailers. The film trailers that I selected incorporated a wide array of different techniques to maximise the desired effect on the audience. I chose 3 different film trailers. These were The Dark Knight, which was my own choice, Hostel, and The Hills of Eyes, my 2 horror choices. The first shots from my first horror choice, The Hills of Eyes, is a certificate warning and the production company logo for Fox Searchlight Pictures. These shots are followed by what looks like archival images of nuclear bombs being dropped from an aircraft in test bombings. This is coupled with an audio and air raid siren, which gives the opening an airy atmosphere and helps to build tension. On the other hand, my second horror choice, Hostel, opens in a completely different manner to The Hills of Eyes. The relatively bright images used previously are replaced by a dark establishing shot, which sets the tone for the film. Low-key lighting is used to convey the dark nature of the film, and this is coupled with images of masked characters washing away what appears to be blood. The Dark Knight, my own choice of trailer, opens in a very similar manner to Hostel. Firstly, an establishing shot is used, coupled with low-key lighting. This conveys Batman's dark and aggressive nature across to the audience, and at the same time presenting Gotham City as a rather sinister and undesirable place to be. These opening shots are crucial to any trailer, as it not only establishes who the production company or studio is, they also introduce the audience to the basic narrative structure that will run throughout the film. The first opening scenes often pose many enigmas. These are designed to persuade the audience to watch the film, as they'll want to find out the answers to the questions that the trailer has posed. The Hills of Eyes can be classed as a horror film, and it becomes apparent in the latter stages of the trailer just why it can be classed so. Firstly, let's focus on the trailer's opening. The music used during the former half of the trailer defies many of the conventions of horror films, as it is upbeat and brings a somewhat jubilant atmosphere to the trailer. However, this atmosphere is dispelled just as quickly as it was created, as the music is brought to an abrupt stop. This sudden shift in soundtrack disorientates the audience and is another way in which tension is built throughout the trailer. From the point where the track gets cut short, a more sinister soundtrack is used, which sounds somewhat like a heartbeat, gradually beating faster and getting louder as the trailer continues, signifying the tension building. None of the film's antagonists appear until the latter portion of the trailer, and when they are shown, it is only for brief periods, only allowing the audience to catch brief glimpses of their faces. This is in keeping with the conventions of the horror genre, as rarely the true identity of the antagonist is revealed until the latter stages of the film. The Hills of Eyes uses many aspects of iconography to build tension and establish a clear narrative plot. For example, the first few scenes, we are introduced to the main characters and the main filming location. The main filming location is a seemingly derelict gas station. The use of derelict buildings in horror films has always been a popular choice amongst directors. Derelict buildings are surrounded by an aura of mystery and suspense, which both intrigues and horrifies audience members. The use of sets is coupled with frequent iconography which runs throughout the entirety of the theatrical trailer. The font used, which is a typewriter font, ties in with the military's use of nuclear weapons, as the font is regularly used by the military in official documents, etc. The use of nuclear weapons and military involvement also poses many enigmas, such as why did they drop the bomb on that particular site when they knew people were inhabited it? And, for example, who are the people who are affected? These enigmas are in fitting with the horror genre and conform to the conventions of the genre as a whole. My other horror choice, Hostel, exhibits many of the characteristics one would expect from the horror genre, such as a derelict setting, low-key lighting, and masked antagonists. As previously mentioned, the first shot is an establishing shot of a derelict warehouse. The combination of the setting, the shot, and the lighting conforms to many of the conventions of the horror genre, as frequently shots with relatively low light are used. These shots don't give the audience a clear picture of what is happening in the scene, and the low light is often used to mask the identity of characters. We have a perfect example of this in the Hostel trailer, as we see one of the characters washing away what appears to be some sort of bodily fluid. In the scene in question, the character's face appears to be masked, however it is barely visible as the main light source is shining on his back, creating an ominous shadow effect. This use of lighting conforms to the conventions of the horror genre, as frequently many directors employ this use of lighting to create enigmas and to build tension. Hostel employs use of typography in a similar manner to The Hills of Eyes does. The military-style font used in The Hills of Eyes doesn't appear in Hostel. Instead, the font used looks weathered and industrial. What is more, the font looks like it has sections missing, almost like it has been mutilated. This could symbolise the film's horrific and gory nature. Hostel is the only one of my film choices to use a form of accolade to sell the film to the audience, For example, From the Brilliant Minds Who Brought You, and a film by Quentin Tarantino. This is another way in which production companies attract audience members to view their new productions, as people who may be fans of Quentin Tarantino may want to see the film purely because they are fans of his previous productions. Unlike in any of my other film trailers, typography in Hostel represents the pace of action on screen. In many intense scenes throughout the trailer, the text jumps out on the screen, shocking the audience, whilst on the black screen shots, the text appears in a more conventional manner, where it slowly rotates. The effect of switching from a black screen to an action shot in some ways resembles a form of torture, which is highly relevant to the film, as the audience doesn't know what is happening and may begin to feel slightly disorientated. Throughout the trailer, the typography is represented in a graphical fashion, only being represented on screen with no voiceovers. However, at the end of the trailer, when the soundtrack is reaching a crescendo, the film's title, Hostel, is said by a voiceover artist. This deep, husky voice used represents the film's genre, as the voice is almost inaudible, somewhat like a captor trying to disguise their voice. In a similar way to The Hills of Ice, Hostel uses iconography to generate tension. Costumes and props play a large role in representing the codes and conventions of the horror genre, and this becomes apparent in Hostel's trailer. Many of the costumes that appear in the trailers are generally associated with surgery. For example, many of the antagonists are wearing bloodied surgical robes. Under normal circumstances, those in surgical robes, such as doctors and nurses, hold positions of authority over their patients, who bestow their trust upon them. However, in the case of Hostel, this image of doctors is turned on its head. Figures of trust have become vicious murderers, and this is particularly a good method to instill fright within the audience members, as it makes them consider if they was in that particular situation at the hands of their doctor. My third film trailer, The Dark Knight, exhibits many of the conventions that one would expect from an action film. Large explosions, thrilling car chases and shootouts, all feature in the trailer, which combine together creating an adrenaline-fueled cinematic experience. One way that the Dark Knight trailer manages to achieve this adrenaline-packed trailer, which leaves the audience craving more, is through the use of iconography and special effects. Special effects, such as the hospital destruction scene, play a huge role in not only creating a thrilling viewing experience, but also establishing the genre and narrative of the film. Fiery scenes such as these allow the audience to briefly glimpse at the most important events throughout the film, narrative structure. This allows them to piece together a very basic idea of what will happen throughout the film, and whether or not they should view it. The use of iconography also plays a vital role in establishing the film's genre. Weapons and luxury vehicles conform to many of the conventions of a typical action film. In many scenes throughout the trailer, we see juxtaposed images of good and evil, the protagonist and the antagonist. In the trailer, Batman doesn't use any firearms, whilst on the other hand the Joker uses a variety of weapons. These juxtaposed images of good and evil conforms to the typical narrative structure of action films, being that the antagonist is attempting to manipulate and find flaws in the protagonist, and then expose them and ultimately defeat him. Returning to The Hills of Ice, we can see that 2/3 of Todorow's basic narrative plot is revealed in the trailer. Firstly, we have the equilibrium, i.e. the family going on holiday, and then we have the disequilibrium, when the family is attacked by mutants who have been affected by nuclear fallout from nearby atomic bomb testing in New Mexico. This is significant, as by only including 2/3 of the narrative structure, it poses a number of enigmas to the audience, such as, do they survive, does anyone die, and these enigmas usually persuade audience members to either go to watch the film or to purchase it. In the Hills of Ice trailer, prolonged shots of the protagonists are shown, however the antagonist's faces are only briefly shown, and when they are shown, they usually shrouded in darkness or are only half visible. Again, this is another marketing tool that production companies employ to attract audiences to watch their films. By shrouding the faces of the antagonist, not only does it build excitement and tension, it also leaves the audience wanting to find out more about the antagonist, such as what they look like and other aspects of their personalities. On the contrary, Hostel doesn't abide to Todorow's basic narrative plot structure. Rather, it shows a montage of some of the most thrilling scenes in the film. No particular equilibrium is shown in the trailer. All that appears on screen is the footage of what appears to be from the disequilibrium stage of the film. In many ways, this can be a disadvantage to the production even before it has been released, as the audience doesn't know any of the plot structure and may not want to watch the film because of this. However, Hostel is an incredibly gory and horrific film, so this alone may persuade people who are into that particular subgenre of film to go to purchase it or to buy a ticket at the cinema. In addition to not abiding to Todorow's theory of an equilibrium, Hostel doesn't introduce the antagonist to the audience either. Throughout the trailer, we see numerous victims being tortured at the hands of those in surgical robes, as mentioned earlier. However, there is no way to distinguish which one is indeed the protagonist, or if they are just minor characters. The fact that there is no dialogue between the characters makes it even harder to begin to differentiate who the different characters are. This places the film's disadvantage as a whole, as the trailer's audience doesn't know who to focus on whilst watching the trailer, as there is no clear protagonist, and so they may not want to go to watch the film, as there is no clear compelling point in the trailer which is hooked them. The Dark Knight, in a similar way to The Hills of Eyes, follows Todorov's basic narrative structure. Firstly, we are introduced to the Equilibrium. We see long shots of Batman on the top of one of the city's largest skyscrapers, and images of a peaceful police march. We are then shortly introduced to the Disequilibrium, which is the arrival of the Joker. The Joker disrupts the peace in Gotham City and poses a threat to Batman. And throughout the rest of the film, Batman seeks to restore his balance by eliminating the Joker. The narrative structure of the film is told through the characters, and so no voiceover is used. The characters introduce the audience to their plans, which enables us to gather a clear insight into what may happen in the remainder of the film. For example, we have the Joker who reveals his plans to kill Batman in a meeting with the gang members. This informs the audience what is going to happen, and they can make an informed decision to watch the film or not, based on this information. I have already touched upon the importance of soundtracks and their effect in my trailers. However, I have not touched upon the importance of diegetic sound to enhance a trailer. The Hills of Eyes and Hostel employ the use of diegetic sound in a similar manner. Footsteps, screams, and the sound of weapons, diegetic sound have all been enhanced for both trailers. Enhancing the sound of footsteps walking down a dark corridor, for example, with them getting louder and louder as the antagonist approaches, is one of the most recognisable traits of the horror genre. This tension building technique creates excitement amongst the audience, as each footstep almost represents a human heartbeat, getting louder and louder until the character steps into sight. Batman, in a similar manner, uses diegetic sound to increase the impact of a particular scene on the audience. Explosions, fights, car chases are all enhanced to provide the audience with a truly exhilarating action-packed experience. Camera angles and editing play a vital role in any theatrical trailer, and no less so in The Hills of Eyes. Throughout The Hills of Eyes trailer, the transition speed between shots gradually increases as the action on screen builds. The information being featured on screen is conveyed in a very fast manner, and requires that the audience focuses on what they are watching and listening to. Trailers with fast-paced transitions, such as The Hills of Eyes, generally throw the audience, as the quick succession of different scenes on screen generally leads to a turning point in the narrative, i.e. in The Hills of Eyes, one of the characters is shown wielding an axe and fighting back, after which the trailer ends. In The Hills of Eyes trailer, a plethora of camera shots are used. However, the most prominent ones are close-up and high-angle shots. Close-up shots are used as they highlight the character's emotions, and this is conveyed across to the audience. For example, in this scene, we can see one of the characters looking out the window. This close-up shot highlights her facial expressions and allows the audience to empathise with her in the current situation that she is in. This builds tension, as in some cases the audience is able to predict the outcome of some scenes based on the character's body language. For example, in the scene previously shown, the way that she was cautiously approaching the window alerts the audience that something is outside, however the identity of that being is unknown. High-angle shots are also used in the Hills of Eyes trailer. High-angle shots convey dominance, and this is in fitting with the conventions of the horror genre, as this establishes the struggle between the protagonist and the antagonist, good and evil. For example, in this shot, we can see the antagonist, a force of evil, perched on top of a hill, and below we have the protagonist, in a much lower position. This establishes who is in the position of power and who is at a disadvantage. Likewise in Hostel, camera shots and editing play a vital role in building tension and highlighting key moments in the narrative. In a similar manner to The Hills of Eyes, camera shots are used to establish dominance between the characters on screen. For example, in this scene here, we see the antagonist wielding a chainsaw. The slight low-angle shot used establishes his dominance and shows the power that he wields. The audience is then able to recognise that he is a powerful individual and one that they should be aware of as the narrative unfolds. The colours used in Hostel's trailer are indicative of the horror genre. Throughout the trailer, dark colours are used, which represent not only the mood of the scene, but the dark, horrific nature of the film as well. The Dark Knight trailer uses many of the same camera techniques displayed in the past two trailers, however less emphasis is put on the characters and more is put on the surrounding environment. Whilst high and low angle camera shots are still used to convey dominance, for example in the scene behind me here, a large deal of the camera shots used in the Dark Knight trailer are establishing shots. For example in the shot here, of Batman on top of the skyscraper. In this shot, he is standing on top of one of Gotham City's skyscrapers whilst the camera pans around him. This, in many ways, works the same as both high and low angle shots, as Batman's high position on the skyscraper connotes a high position of power and authority over Gotham City. All three trailers use a wide variety of techniques to attract and entertain audience members, whether it be Hostel, The Hills of Eyes, or Batman. All three manage to offer an exciting experience tailored to their specific target audience. Thank you for watching this presentation.